Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've all topped up your caffeine levels and you're ready for our next panel session. This one is called, deep breath, Making the Quantum Leap, Overcoming the Remaining Challenges to a Safe and Responsible Commercial Rollout of Automated Vehicles. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? However, it is a valid description of what we want to discuss on this panel. What do we need to do to continue the shift of automated vehicles from the realms of science fiction and into the real world? What use cases exist? What lessons have we learned from trials? What obstacles remain? And what can the government do to support the industry? We saw some real green shoots last year. We had the Automated Vehicles Bill announced as part of the King's speech, and it's currently flying through Parliament. We saw more government funding made available to support advanced trials, along with an advanced manufacturing plan and a battery strategy. And our automotive and mobility industry continued to impress us all with some standout commercial successes and announcements about their exciting plans for the future. So far, so good. My name is Ben Gardner, and I'm a partner at Shoosmiths. Shoosmiths are a law firm that specialise in all things automotive and mobility. And joining me on stage to understand what this quantum leap might look like, it's my pleasure to introduce Professor David Keene, Chief Executive Officer of Aurrigo, Dr. René Hosse, Head of AD System Definition and Assurance at Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles, and Isobel, Head of the UK's Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles.
Collaboration is going to be crucial in making AVs a reality. We're not talking supply chains and OEMs, we're talking government, academia, telecommunications, technology companies, and everyone involved in that ecosystem coming together to support progression.
Because none of this is going to happen overnight. It's going to be an iterative process. The legislation will move forward, the technology will move forward. The technology will inform the legislation, and the legislation will inform the technology. It's all got to be done together.
Creating a sustainable freedom of movement will change everyday people's lives with a more affordable and inclusive mobility. With our roots as an OEM, we are able to manage the complexity of today's development, combining this with the new demands of future mobility. Thus, we are able to scale our business models easily around the world.
Great. So thank you all for joining us here today. I must admit I'm feeling a little bit underqualified. We've got a regulator, a doctor, and a professor. So I'm going to try my best not to embarrass myself over the next half an hour or so. Moving swiftly on. René, focusing on VW first and foremost, please could you give us a quick overview of what your division does and the key use cases that you're looking at for automated vehicles?
Sure. So what are we working on, or what are we looking for? What is our vision? So we at Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles are planning to develop, or are developing, a car, an ID bus, an autonomous ID bus that will provide on-demand services in urban areas. The idea is really to get rid of the driver in urban areas and provide the same level of quality as a mobility service that you would have as owning your own car, right? You would be able to order a ride via your app, can board the car, you will be taken to the destination you are actually wanting to go, and you will depart there. So that's the vision we are looking for. So we will incorporate or integrate with public transportation organizations. It's not for private use, so to say, or for private ownership, but this is the vision that we have to really change the mobility and not just providing autonomous driving.
Now, David, you operate in a slightly different environment. Do you want to give us all an overview of what Aurrigo does and the use cases that you're looking at?
Yeah, sure. So we started out our autonomous journey in 2014. And initially, we started out with first and last mile passenger transport, which in fact we still do. But the bit of the sort of eureka moment occurred in 2018. We were contacted by International Airlines Group, who own British Airways and Iberia, and they said, "We love what you're doing on passenger vehicles. Could you do something to move cargo and baggage around our airports?" And that really opened the door to a non-road application of autonomous vehicles. So that's where we're majoring on now, and we've got significant penetration into some of the major airports around the world, and we've been developing vehicles to do that task.
Brilliant. And Isobel, I guess moving the conversation on slightly, we've seen numerous trials taking place across the UK over a number of years now. Are there any key learnings that CEng or yourself as a regulator have taken from these trials?
Yeah, I think, well, I mentioned on my video that we very much see the trials and the regulatory framework and also the engagement with the public and our understanding of how this technology is going to contribute to a transport network and contribute to people's lives, all being very much hand in hand and needed together to develop the market and the opportunities that are going to come forward. So I think from the trials, the more we do, the more we learn about all of those elements. To be honest, the technology certainly, what's needed around the technology to make it work. You know, we were talking earlier about the consortia in our trials. It's not just the technology. There's a whole ecosystem around the technology that's needed for these more advanced deployment trials. So I think we've learned a lot about that, and we're learning more around how the trials, and I think we need to learn more about this, how the trials contribute to people's lives and fix problems in the real world.
René, when we spoke previously, you mentioned that you were carrying out trials in North America and Germany predominantly. Are there any key lessons that VW have taken away from those?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're driving since a couple of months now with the latest version of the car. And what we're learning there, it is not just about the autonomous driving system. It is really ensuring safety from end to end. It starts at the sensors. It goes on with the compute units and ends at the actuators, right? You need fair redundant systems from power supply to actuators to steering to braking. And this is something that we can think is one of our core competencies to really ensure this end-to-end combination. And as Isobel just said, we're aiming for, with this level 4 technology, for a new mobility system. That's not just a car. You need much more. We heard about connectivity this morning, right? You need back-end system. You need infrastructure to overwatch the system, to overwatch the cars, especially when they are testing and when they're deployed. You need to integrate with public transportation organizations, right? So they have their own views about how to interact between a customer and the car. And of course, you need to provide, as an OEM, adequate tools so that fleet operators, that the actual operators of this product are capable of overwatching this, of handling it in a safe and secure manner. So it's much more really about engineering mobility systems and less just about autonomous driving.
And any plans to come to the UK?
Good question. Another learning we had is, since with this project or with this product, we are heavily integrating into society. And since we're seeing so many regulative challenges, it's not just about homologating the AD system. In the end, it's also about concessioning the service, right? You're becoming an integral part of society. And this is a long chain of different regulative frameworks. And for us, we've learned right now in our testings that it's always easier to be in a country or in a city where you're actively wanted. So having really a local partner and cooperating with the locals. This is what we do in Hamburg, for instance. We are very wanted from the city of Hamburg. We're becoming a strategic pillar in their mobility vision for 2025, 26, 27, 2030. And the same it is right now in Austin, Texas. So we're really wanted there. We have a very positive environment, and it's a venture, right? Everybody needs to a certain amount a leap of faith that this will really change mobility.
Sorry, that was an unfair question. A UK automotive conference, but it was worth asking.
Sure.
David, Aurrigo, what trials have you undertaken? Any lessons learned?
Yeah, I guess we've done quite a lot of trials around the world at various airports and also obviously with our passenger vehicles. But two really, I think people always like to hear about practical examples of what's happened. And at an airport, currently we're managing over 40 stakeholders at an airport. So if you can think of a stakeholder, there's one more. They just come out of the woodwork at you, and to be honest with you, it's actually a great thing to start with. It's like, oh my goodness, not another stakeholder. But actually, you need all of those stakeholders, because if you don't, then you've got no chance of implementing that solution in what is quite a complex and time-critical operation. So stakeholder management, engagement, and providing them with the reassurance that what we're doing is not only safe, but will actually deliver the job in the right time frame. It is all part of that process. And the second one, I'd like to give you a practical example. So we go to Singapore to our lead customer, which is Changi Airport, and we're showing them all this fantastic tech. You know, we can go in, out, pirouette around, pick up containers, drop containers, and that's all brilliant. But operating in monsoon rain is their number one key thing. And the reason it's key is because in Singapore, when they have a lightning storm and heavy rain, every employee that is on the airport is told to go into the buildings. And the average lost time per day is 45 minutes. So if you think about that from an operational point of view, if you could have a robot or a series of robots doing that job while the people are safe and secure, then that would bring a much improved operational performance to the airport. And I'm pleased to say, only last week, we actually achieved that full operational in very heavy rain. So for those of you who can calculate it, 45 millimeters per hour, rain, full performance, end-to-end aircraft to baggage hall, which is a significant step forward. And that one single thing is what the CEO of Changi Airport will sign off on, because he knows everything else is doable, because they're a technology lead organization.
I imagine Manchester Airport will have similar requirements.
Well, it could be grim up north, but I'd tell you in Singapore, what was really funny when we did the tests in Singapore is that the vehicle's going around and it's performing perfectly. But to prove it, they wanted to send people out and throw suitcases in front of it on boxes. And they took cardboard boxes out. And by the time the event was finished, they were all like papier-mâché, just fallen to pieces, because the rain is just so heavy. So those are two practical examples: stakeholder engagement and really things you don't think about. Who'd have thought you lose 45 minutes because of lightning storms? I never knew that.
Interesting. Isobel, if I had £1 for every time I'd heard the phrase automated vehicles bill over the last couple of months, I'd probably be able to afford one of JLR's speaker systems. Could you give us a little bit more information about what is currently underway within CCAV and Parliament about how you plan to regulate automated vehicles on the road?
Yeah, if you can afford a JLR speaker system, I wonder what I could afford. I mean, it's very exciting. We're just in the final stages of preparation for the Commons Committee stage next week. Some of you in this room may well have contributed to the parliamentary call for evidence, and it's been going really well. We've got really cross-party agreement of the need for the bill. The debates, I'd say, fall short of arguments on the whole, have been very positive and around some of the more technical and detailed elements of the bill, particularly around safety. And we've made good progress through the Lords. We expect to do the same in the Commons. The following stages, so the bill provides what I like to think of as the steels in a modern building, and the following months and years will be about putting whatever the building material is that fills in those steels. So with regulations and with guidance. And I think we're all keen to get into that conversation and start looking at the detail. So I think that's going to be a huge part of it, and we'll certainly be looking to do that in partnership with the full range of interested people, industry included. But alongside that, I think we need to continue our focus on public engagement and understanding. And we had the launch of PAVE UK, which Secretary of State mentioned earlier. I think that's an important part of the picture. And also, obviously, our trials. And again, just to reiterate that the development of those regulations really will depend on the technology coming forward and informing them. And that being a kind of a circular conversation.
Yeah, I must admit, I probably speak for a lot of people that are interested in the legal side of automated vehicles, and the bill is a fantastic first step on the ladder towards us creating a kind of flourishing future automotive environment in the UK. It's hugely positive now that businesses will have more confidence as to what the legal frameworks are. We're removing some of the grey areas, some of the uncertainty, and that will hopefully breed consumer confidence and public acceptance as well. So, yeah, I think it's a fantastic work product, and long may it continue to kind of sail through Parliament towards royal assent. Challenges. René, maybe starting with you, what do you foresee as the main challenges, obstacles to your kind of division's successful deployment of your AV solution?
I think in total there are four. First, of course, and that's the responsibility of us as the industry, as the automotive industry, is the tech readiness. We must provide a proof that these systems, these technologies are safer than a human being, than a human driver. We heard this today several times, like a lot of the error of the accidents come from human error. And I mean, this is like this huge thing why we want to do this, right? We want safer, more affordable, more inclusive technologies of driving. But this is in the responsibility, I would say, from industry and providing this in a regulative compliant framework and creating transparency on this one, right? We don't want to hide anything. We make open book and show where are we, what can we do, what can't we do. And I think this is one of the challenges, that this must be in the end demonstrated for really large-scale deployment. Second one, of course, is the regulatory framework. We need there a reliable framework that really thinks through the whole chain from testing to large-scale deployment, and also enabling these other types of business cases. What I just said, it's not just about approving or homologating an AV, it's also about enabling the connecting services with it, right? What do you do with this? The third challenge is, in our understanding, of course, the business case, right? So we are here at Volkswagen through the age of research. We are not researching anymore. We really want this large-scale production project now to be deployed. So, and the corporation or the Volkswagen Group has, of course, an interest to earn money with this. It's not to showcase, it's not to show off, it's really to change something and provide new mobility. And the fourth, and I think we also talked about this today, is the societal acceptance, right? So when you look to different transportation modes, it's already very well accepted that there is a very high degree of autonomy, but you don't perceive it. You don't perceive it as a rider in a rail car or in a plane, how much of the traveling process is already automated. In cars, this is completely new, right? So you see sometimes these cars, but they are not very frequently distributed throughout cities, right? You need to look for them. So what we actually do there right now is like driving very obviously in these cities like Hamburg, Munich, Austin. We are inviting in the second half of this year actually public people to become part of this journey, right? So we're integrating already the society into the testing phase, getting their feedback, incorporating them into the engineering process actually, to make sure that step by step the society, especially the cities we're looking for, they get used to the cars, to the new technologies. They see how it works, they understand, and they create trust to actually want to use this technology and see it as a societal benefit.
And Isobel, if we put regulation to one side, because that's all fixed now, what challenges do you see to the commercial rollout at scale of AVs?
Yeah, I really agree with what René said. To quote, I think Steve Gooding from the RSC Foundation, I was on a panel with him once and he said, this needs to be boring. I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. And I think about that quite a lot. I think in terms of the challenges outside of regulation, I'd just kind of pick up on the business case, the business model point that you made as well. I think that's a really interesting challenge and links to the regulation, because through this new legal framework, that there has been created new, they're called actors in the legal terms, but new players essentially, and it's not clear yet who's going to take all of those different roles. And I think that's going to be a really interesting piece of the market to explore, and it won't be the same for every organisation and for every product. So I think working through that will be really, really interesting. And then getting to a point where the technology is seen as a go-to within the transport system. It links to what you were saying about the business case, but it's having that demand being alongside all the other levers that you might reach for in a transport system. I think that's a huge challenge.
I will actually add to this point. I think that what I haven't showed here or demonstrated yet is this part about accessibility. So I think that this technology has the potential to create the same benefits to disabilities or to people with disabilities as, for instance, the iPhone did, right? So you became capable when you are disabled to actually navigate through cities, through unknown areas. And these use cases or these applications will be doable with these cars, right? So we will enable a much broader range of people, mobility, individual mobility, without the need for help of others, right? You can navigate, you can find the cars. We are giving concepts for blind people, for instance, to actually being able to find the car, even if it's not at a bus stop station, for instance. The hearing impaired, of course, we have concepts for that. Being honest, a challenge is wheelchair accessibility, especially with our vehicle right now, but we're already thinking about the future and another vehicle concept after this transition model we call, that will be fully accessible. And this will really change a lot of people's lives. We are absolutely convinced about it.
And David, looking to the off-road use case, what challenges do you see there?
So I guess we've proved to the airport and airline operators that the technology works, but we've only really proved it in, how many have we got? We've got 3 vehicles operating at Singapore, and they're working together. But if you take Terminal 1, 2, 3, 4 and the new Terminal 5, they need 1,000 of our vehicles. So to get 1,000 vehicles to operate at scale is quite a challenge. So the rest of this year, we're focusing a lot less on our technology and a lot more on the implementation into the airport operating system. So we need to connect into all of that baggage system so that we know exactly and automated what to pick up, where to take it to, what aircraft, what stand, and then what's our next job. So that's really important. And that really is our last key thing that we need to just, I was going to use the word crack, but we're not really cracking it. It's just proving that it'll work end to end and seamlessly. There's been a lot of talk about the business case, and I think really people are really interested in, when will all this happen? When will, in our case, when will you look out of your plane and see our vehicles operating? And I think our anticipation of that position is really close. So I'll give you a bet if you want to do it. It's first quarter of next year. You will see us starting to announce that we have full commercial rollout in some of these airports globally. And that just highlights how close the tech is to actually delivering and doing a job. And more companies like us and René, showing that this is out there will drag all that along as well. So these are really exciting times. And there's plenty of people out in the audience I know who've got similar companies who are developing similar tech, who are really close to all this stuff. So this is not magical 10 years. This is right here and now. Super exciting.
Super exciting indeed, and a nice note to end on, I guess. So I'd like to invite any questions that we may have out in the audience for our panellists.
Stunned
One just at the
silence.
back there. Name and organisation, please.
Peter Campbell from the Financial Times. Question really for Isobel. It's about public acceptance. We've seen time and again in America, whenever there are accidents involving autonomous vehicles, there's a huge backlash against it that often leads to a delay to roll out everywhere else. Has the government thought about that when it comes to vehicles in the UK and how you might deal with that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm quite glad that you've asked it. I think one of the reasons that we're doing what we're doing in the UK is that so that we have a safety and assurance bar before the vehicles are driving themselves on our roads, which is not the case, I believe, in the States. So there's a different system of self-certification, and certainly safety is a key factor. But we would have that level of assurance, and I think that trust piece is a big part of what is important to the public. The engagement that we've done, that's come up time and time again. The public want to know that someone is looking at this technology outside of the people who are putting it on the roads. So I think that's a big part of it. And a huge challenge alongside that is understanding the statistics and the whole picture. So we've all heard the 88% of incidents have a contributory factor of human error. Self-driving vehicles on the road doesn't mean that there will be no collisions. It doesn't mean there will be no accidents. But what does it mean in relative terms? And we need to be able to communicate that. That's a huge challenge. But I think that's where we really need to be thinking about, so that we can explain in the public domain and have that debate, as we do in many other technological spheres, what are the costs and what are the benefits, and how do they weigh up against each other.
A couple down here.
Hi there, Matt Oliver from the Daily Telegraph. It's been talked about previously that if you manage to pass this bill, and let's say you manage to pass it this year, that you could see fully autonomous cars rolled out on the roads from 2027, but then it's also been said you could potentially do it sooner, 2026. What is your expectation? I mean, what's realistically possible in your view? And then from that point, how do you see it scaling up, and how quickly and so on? Thanks.
Well, maybe if I can start and others can come in on the scaling up element. So it will take us a little bit of time to put in the regulations, certainly. I would anticipate that to happen over the next 2 or 3 years. So we're definitely targeting 2026. But alongside that, and that's very much in line with what we're hearing from industry about their testing schedules and particularly testing without a safety driver. But we are looking in parallel at those advanced trials and how we enable those as a kind of step forward on our code of practice, which was really focused on trials with a safety driver. So I think those two things will happen in parallel. And from the conversations that I've had, that's very much in line with the timeframes of the industry that we're talking to.
So I can just comment on this one. So we are ready to deploy at large scale at the end of 26, beginning of 27. So that's the plan. We are able to do so, or we'll start primarily in 26 in Germany. We have the regulatory framework in place. It's not perfect, especially when it comes to large scale deployments, but it's doable. So we are ready to deploy around 27 really to other countries.
And I guess there's kind of two streams to that question as well, because we probably won't have that big bang moment necessarily. There'll be piecemeal introduction, as Tom from JLR mentioned in his talk earlier. So there'll be piecemeal introduction of advanced driving features over time, and then there's obviously going to be, hopefully at some point, that large-scale commercial ability to roll out as well.
Hello? Yes, sorry, there you go. Nick Gibbs, Autocar, Automotive News Europe. What about the thorny question of profitability? We haven't seen so far any company really make consistent profits within the area of autonomous driving. Even Aurrigo seems to have a good business model, but still pre-profit. At what point do you have to say, look, this money is not being employed in the right way, and perhaps we might have to step back from this? And I wonder if CCAV has got any sort of profit targets on the projects that they support.
Would you go first?
I can go first from an Aurrigo point of view. We're a commercial company. We have been for 31 years. We're now a public company as part of the process going through developing all of the tech. We changed. I mean, I'm a founder of the company. We moved from a private company to a public company. We raised some money to do that. We've additionally raised some further money, but we're raising money on new customers coming to us. We're not raising money really specifically to develop, far out technology or vehicles. Everything we do is very laser focused on, is there a commercial pull? And I mean a commercial pull, a really defined one. And that's why we're spending a lot of our time in airports, because the guys need us. So if you think pre-COVID, we had a slight challenge because we were up against unions. We were up against potentially us making a large number of people redundant through those processes. Post-COVID, the world has changed completely. Those airports and operators, they cannot get the personnel back. So we're seen as a gap filler where our automated vehicles are supporting the fact that they can't get those people in, because flight schedules are now back to pre-COVID levels. So we only work on things that are commercial. So that's our company's answer to that.
And looking to Volkswagen, I mean, we started this venture of this new mobility already in 2019 with our mobility brand Moja. So right now we have complete understanding of the whole chain of where's the cash flow generated, where's the profitability. And the main pain point we have in this calculus is the driver. So when we will become able to get the driver out of the equation of these services, you will become profitable. And we, as Volkswagen, would have never started this large-scale production project without knowing that the profitability is ensured when we are ready to launch to the market. So, of course, the profitability is a key driver. And since we're having this complete understanding of this product and where money is created and where money is consumed, we know how to get profitable here.
And I think we've got one more question at the front.
Thanks very much. John Neal, Chairman of Unipart. I have a question for David. Your vision of thousands of automated vehicles running around airports is brilliant commercial concept and reality. The thing that I'd just be interested in, and may be completely irrelevant question, but the AI tools are now becoming so powerful and in the hands of bad actors, what's the risk that they produce software and viruses which allow these vehicles to go berserk on airport runways and so on? I mean, that sounds like a pretty scary idea, and it probably is more general across all of vehicle automation. I mean, is it a risk, and if so, how would you control it?
Well, one of the great things about working at an airport is it's completely enclosed with completely private networks. So, okay, you've got public networks for you to, you know, surf the internet or whatever, or look at flight data while you're in the terminal building. But the fundamental operations within an airport are completely private networks. So setting up a private network, connecting those vehicles solely to that private network, and running under our platform, which is a cyber-resilient auto-connect platform, means that we can operate. So you haven't got a 15-year-old or another actor outside, you know, trying to control our vehicles. And in fact, as someone said earlier, you can't actually remotely drive our vehicles. The intelligence is in the vehicle. The communication between the vehicle and the control center, there's no technical information in that. There's nothing to hack. There's nothing to see. And the only thing you can do is you can make those vehicles stop. And that has to be a very coordinated activity. So private network, great use case, commercially brilliant. So we're going to stick there, and we're going to bring our passenger vehicles into there as well, because they need passenger vehicles, both airside and passenger side.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. And that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. So all I'd like to do is thank our panellists for their insight.